This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Half bird, half man, Birdman had a difficult start to life. After he was born, he spent a whole month without a given name. People simply referred to him as Baby, and that's a nickname that has stuck until this day. Not just because he was always saying it, but also to this day, he still looks like a baby. Well, at least one that's been left unsupervised with a Sharpie. His mother, Gladys Brooks, who he's affectionately referred to as Miss Gladys throughout his career, unfortunately passed away, Baby says, getting shot when he was only 2 years old.
You mentioned how old were you when she passed away?
I was 2 when she passed. My mom passed after she had me. She got shot, so she died from complications.
And Baby was taken in by his uncle for a short period of time before spending a couple of years in a foster home. Eventually, his father discovered that his son was in foster care and decided to fight for custody of Baby. Perhaps it was those years without a father that would make Birdman cherish the father-son relationship so much that he would try and replicate it with some kid that he found called Wayne.
But now, a word from our sponsor.
Before we get in today's video, I just want to shout out Skillshare for sponsoring this ting. Thanks Skillshare, appreciate you. It's time to level up those skills, baby.
I love Chris Rich.
I'ma learn some stuff on Skillshare. Learn some stuff on Skillshare. Learn some stuff on Skillshare. Trap law where you learn stuff on Skillshare, yeah. I'ma learn some stuff on Skillshare. Learn some stuff on Skillshare. Learn some stuff on Skillshare. Trap law where you learn stuff on Skillshare, yeah. Skillshare, it's the online learning community. It's a membership with meaning, and that means a great deal to me. Learn about design, business, freelancing, and more. That's fact. There's over 30,000 classes for you to explore. I got 3 months into the year on wanting me some new skills. Improved my learning, got that bag so I could go pay the bills. Greg McEwen's the author of one of my favorite books. He had a course on Skillshare, and of course your boy done took it. The whole thing straight fire, but what's in it, you ask? Tips on getting more with less and staying focused on tasks. But should you take this class? Well, Trap Law recommends that you do. It helps me get my work done quicker and has sterling reviews. Skillshare's mad affordable, it's less than $10 a month, so you don't need a loan to learn, and it won't cost you a ton. And right now Skillshare's offering the first 500 who click 2 months of premium membership completely free. Check my link down in description. Come on, man. Come on, sign up for Skillshare. Sign up today and make 2020 the year you explore new skills and strengthen your passions with Skillshare. Come on, you're just sitting at home with nothing to do. You might as well learn something new, you get me? Chris Rich on a beat. Thank you to Skillshare. Link in description. Peace.
After serving a short time in jail for drug dealing, Baby set out to make something of himself in the music industry around the early 90s. Once bounce music started popping off in New Orleans, Ronald Slim Williams and his baby brother Baby decided to start their own record label, Cash Money Records, drawing their logo on a napkin, and I assume taking it into a tattoo parlor and asking for 1,000 more just as bad. From there, ever the entrepreneur, Baby and his big brother Slim traveled all over Louisiana looking for fresh musical talent. Now I know a small segment of people are going to hate me for saying this, but I really don't give a shit about 90s bounce music in New Orleans. And I'd probably wager that neither are you. So we're going to bounce right over this part of the Cash Money story. But after several hairless years of hustle later, Baby had built himself a talented roster of artists in the first generation of Cash Money Records, most of which are names that you likely haven't heard of today. But the fact of the matter is that at its peak, Cash Money Records was supposedly making $1 million a month independently. Which means, hang on, carry the 1, 12. $12 million a year. Now there's a lot of conflicting timelines about exactly when Birdman met Lil Wayne. Eventually in the mid-90s, Birdman was introduced to a preteen Wayne by one of the artists that he had on Cash Money. Back in those days, going by the name Baby D, Birdman was immediately impressed by this young legend in the making.
I spit for Baby. I met him, like I said, May 13th, whatever. It was at a record store. Lil Slim was there, the artist, the dude. He introduced me to Baby and them, and I spit for Baby, and and they gave me a card, and I ain't never stopped calling the number on that motherfucker.
Birdman's not the first person in the music industry to have preteen talent brought to him on a plate, and he certainly isn't the last. And it turns out that Birdman loved a bit of Baby D, if you catch my drift. So Big Baby paired up Baby D with another youngster 2 years older than him known as Lil Doogie, forming the early rap duo the Bee Gees. You know, like Baby G's, but also kind of like the Bee Gees, get it? You kind of had to be there. Anyway, the Baby G's didn't make a huge amount of progress during this period, you know, what with basically being infants. But it's hardly their fault if they were too busy growing pubes to write hit songs. But over this period, a young Baby D was exposed to a lot of things in Cash Money Records, beyond Birdman himself. Of course, you might already be familiar with some of the wild sexual antics that Lil Wayne was privy to at Cash Money, but more importantly than that, Wayne witnessed the coming and going of numerous Cash Money artists over this period, with most of them citing financial mismanagement or money squabbles as their top reason for being unhappy. And so, in response to the Cash Money roster having a higher turnover rate than a Wuhan hospital, Baby cooked up a genius plan to form a Cash Money supergroup. Baby D was renamed Lil Wayne, and Lil Doogie took the name BG. And that same year, Baby and Slim recruited two new artists, Turk and Juvenile, placing all of them together in a group called the Hot Boys. And I tell you what, these boys would sure make things hot. They released their debut album Get It How You Live in 1997, selling 400,000 copies, completely independently through Cash Money Records, as well as charting at number 37 on Billboard's Hot R&B and Rap Albums chart, as well as the Top Heat Seekers chart, a big feat for an independent label in 97. So at this point, the Hot Boys were popping in the streets all over America, and it was this success that allowed Cash Money to secure an enormous $30 million deal from Universal Records in 1998. Apparently this deal was coordinated with a woman named Wendy Day, a legend of the rap business world who founded Rap Coalition, advising famous artists like Tupac and Chuck D on how to move smart in the financial side of the music industry. However, beyond just giving guidance, she famously brokered a number of big deals for rappers and rap labels. This included Master P's No Limit Records that got an incredible 85-15 deal for distribution through Priority Records, Twista's 50-50 joint venture with Atlantic, and even Eminem's Interscope deal after being the organizer of the 1997 Rap Olympics where he was discovered. You might as well call her Trap Lore Wendy. So between Wendy Day and Dino Del Valle, the A&R at Universal, Baby and Slim landed an incredible deal. They got a $3 million advance, giving Cash Money an 80-20 distribution deal, 85% of their royalties, 50% of their publishing revenues, and 100% ownership of all of their masters, with Universal eventually buying a stake in Cash Money and making them a subsidiary of Universal Music Group. Now, talking of financial mismanagement, you'd think that at least the broker that got you a $30 million deal would be taken care of, right? Wrong.
I ended up suing them. They paid me before we got to court. They paid me what they owed me, so I was happy. I mean, I was sad that it took 3 years and $12,000 of me suing them. But, you know, they finally paid me. They finally did what was right.
Yes, that's right. Cash Money was so stingy that they didn't even pay the person that got them the cash money to begin with. At that point, they might as well have changed their name from Cash Money to Money What Money? Anywho, with this freshly finessed Cash Money, they were ready to take the Hot Boys to the next level, signing each of the artists to solo and group deals and begun to release a lot of music. Juvenile dropped 400 Degrees, going 4 times platinum, which included the hit single Back That Ass Up, dropping in at number 19 on Billboard. BG's single Bling Bling hit number 36 on Billboard. Lil Wayne dropped his debut album The Block Is Hot and ended up hitting number 3 on Billboard and going platinum. BG dropped Chopper City in the Ghetto, going platinum. The Hot Boys dropped Guerrilla Warfare, landing a number 1 hip-hop album, a number 5 Billboard chart album, and going platinum within months. And whilst this is just a small collection of the big W's that Cash Money managed to rack up over this period, the golden era of Cash Money would eventually end sooner rather than later, with a mass exodus of artists occurring between 2001 and 2003, pretty much leaving Lil Wayne as the only man left standing at Cash Money. But why did everyone leave? Well, you know, apparently they were just growing as artists and were ready to evolve beyond the Cash Money. I'm just f***ing with you. No, it was financial mismanagement, of course. Though in their defense, Juvenile did eventually come back to the label, dropping the platinum album Juvie the Great, which had the number 1 single Slow Motion, which I assume was inspired by the speed at which Cash Money pay their artists. Even with the Hot Boys on ice, Lil Wayne continued to be the shining crown jewel for Cash Money. He'd already released a platinum album with The Block Is Hot when he was only 17 years old. And he followed that up with the album Lights Out, which sadly didn't do as well as The Block Is Hot, but it was still a big W and ended up going gold. Meanwhile, Baby plugged the gaps in the release calendar after the departure of the Hot Boys, with drops from his own rap duo that he'd started earlier with in-house producer Manny Fresh called the Big Timers. But hell, even back then, compared to a teenage Lil Wayne, they were looking more like the old timers. Wayne dropped a third album in 2002 called 500 Degrees, which did similarly to Lights Out, going gold, but not quite reaching the success of The Block Is Hot, but it at least kept the Cash Money lights on for a little bit longer. But it'd be in 2004 when he released the first installment in his legendary The Carter series that Wayne would truly become the star we know him as today. That first Carter album featured the headline solo single Go DJ, which was Wayne's first mainstream solo hit, hitting number 14 on the Billboard chart. The Carter sold over 878,000 units in the US, and Wayne kept kept his name buzzing in the mainstream music industry by appearing on the Destiny's Child track Soldier alongside T.I., which ended up becoming a top 3 hit. A year later, he followed up the Carter with, you guessed it, The Carter 2, which sold 2 million copies worldwide, hit number 2 on Billboard, and had the single Fireman, which hit number 32 on the Billboard. The following year, it was publicly announced that Wayne would be establishing his own record label, Young Money, as well as becoming the president of Cash Money Records, a deal that had apparently been in the works for several years. And hell, if that wasn't enough winning for Birdman and his surrogate son, Lil Wayne, they followed that up with their collaboration album Like Father, Like Son. Kind of like Watch the Throne, but with a lot more tongue kissing. This was another big success for the duo, and the single Stuntin' Like My Daddy hit number 21 on Billboard. Now, in the couple years that followed, Wayne didn't actually drop an album, instead choosing to dominate the rap scene through a series of free mixtapes, including episodes of his The Drought series and his Dedication series with DJ Drama. Sorry, I mean DJ Drama! As well as performing features on an enormous lineup of chart-smashing tracks by other artists. He was on You by Lloyd, which hit number 9, Sweetest Girl with Wyclef at number 12, Make It Rain with Fat Joe at number 13, Duffel Bag Boys with Players Circle hitting number 15, Lovin' This Club Part 2 with Usher at number 18, We Taken Over by DJ Khaled at number 28, Pop Bottles with Birdman at number 38, Holler At Me with DJ Khaled at number 39, as well as appearing on numerous other iconic but non-charting songs by other big rappers such as Barry Bonds with Kanye Yeezy and Hello Brooklyn with Jay-Z. And by the end of 2007, Wayne was being called MTV's hottest MC in the game. The New Yorker called him Rapper of the Year, Rolling Stone gave him Best MC, hell, I even hear the SZA on Sunday gave him the Golden Cup Award for services to sippin'. And all of this paved the way for Lil Wayne to absolutely demolish 2008, when he dropped the monster hit and probably my favorite album of all time, The Carter 3. The Carter 3 was a classic straight out the gate. It sold 1 million copies first week and ended up going double platinum by the end of the year. It was 2008's best-selling record, and the album won Wayne 3 Grammys, including Best Rap Album, in a moment where he was so eager to get on stage quickly that he was tapping square to try and GTA jump there faster.
I just want to say thank God, thank New Orleans, thank these people you see right here, and thank you.
But it wasn't just the Carter that was racking up the big W's for Young Weezy. The lead single, Lollipop, was a number 1 hit and even got an incredible Kanye West remix. Lollipop won Wayne a Grammy for Best Song, and its follow-up, A Milli, won Wayne the Grammy for Best Performance, as well as charting at number 6 on Billboard, and going down as probably one of the best rap songs in history. The follow-up to that, Got Money, went number 13, and hell, while we're taking big W's left, right, and center, Wayne also won a 4th Grammy for Best Group Performance after appearing on Swagger Like Us with Jay-Z, T.I., and Kanye West. So it's pretty safe to say that 2008 was Wayne's year. Obama who?
Maybe you are the next Lil Wayne, but probably not.
Goddamn hater. So 3 million record sales later, surely Wayne's surrogate father Birdman is happy with his performance. And at this point, Wayne re-signed with Cash Money Records in a big solo deal that would oblige him to deliver 4 more albums to the label, as well as expanding his deal for his Young Money imprint, which Wayne, now with the rap game firmly in a chokehold, would begin focusing all of his energy and effort on, relentlessly trying to get his Young Money artists through the door. Eventually dropping the Young Money compilation album We Are Young Money, and giving the album the ultimate cosign by appearing on all but one of the track's albums. We Are Young Money did pretty well. It hit number 9 on Billboard and sold 500,000 copies, going gold. That album spawned 2 major singles, the STD-spreading anthem Every Girl in the World, which is all about Wayne and his crew's unusual ambition to literally every girl in the world. Hey, it sounds kind of gross, but at least it had more success than my single, titled Literally Any Girl That Doesn't Vomit at the Mere Sight of Me. Every Girl hit number 10 on the Billboard charts, and its follow-up Bedrock ended up hitting number 2. That was yet another sexual harassment anthem, based around that classic pickup line, Call Me Mr. Flintstone, cause I can make you bedrock. Which again, did much better than my own single, Call Me Mr. Lecter, cause I can make a mask out of your face. God, I'm gonna be single forever, aren't I? Anywho, these 2 massive and sexually charged hits introduced the world to Lil Wayne's extended Young Money family, and the crew were coming through strong with a solid lineup. They had Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tiger, what's his name, that guy, the dude that actually runs Young Money, and the guy that smashed up Bieber's Rari, and this guy that looks like a store brand Trippie Redd. Nope, haven't got Scooby-Doo who that is. And look, they even had a backup Nicki Minaj in case the good one has to go in for a service. And so that's the Young Money Cash Money lineup. Of course, course, the bigger tier names on the list went on to have enormous careers. Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tiger. And while the years that followed were a complete roller coaster ride for Wayne himself, unfortunately catching a gun charge and getting sentenced to a year in jail on Rikers Island, which was documented in his amazing journal, Gone Till November, as well as attempting a career shift to rock music with the terrible, terrible album Rebirth, followed by a slightly better return to form with his I Am Not a Human Being album. Now, luckily, we did eventually get another taste of the Lil Wayne that we knew and loved when he dropped the Carter 4 in 2011, selling 1 million copies first week, landing Lil Wayne another #1 album. And even though he followed that up with I Am Not a Human Being 2 in 2013, but critics and fans definitely noticed the dip in quality between that and his last work. Now, this was actually meant to be the last album that Wayne was obliged to deliver to Cash Money as part of his original contract. But as we all know, what fans really wanted was what was supposed to come next, the mythical Carter 5. And Wayne wanted to give it to them, but there was one man standing in his way. Me, Playboy. That's Birdman. That's what he does. The teasing for the Carter 5 album started at the end of 2013. The new VP of promotion at Cash Money tweeted Happy Friday, new music coming soon, Carter 5. Drake tweeted Carter 5 in February, followed by that same VP who had tweeted earlier, coming out, saying the Carter 5 is nearly done and it's going to surprise the fans. Not long after that, Wayne would come out on stage with Drake at All-Star Weekend, revealing to fans that the album would be dropping on May the 5th, 2014. Sadly, however, by the end of March, Wayne's manager Cortez Bryant would come out to say that the Carter 5 would unfortunately be delayed. And the whole of 2014 would go by without any sight of the Carter 5, despite Wayne even having the singles Believe Me, Gotti, Crazy, Grindin', and Start a Fire all out there in public getting spins. For a brief moment, a December 9th release date was being teased, before Wayne ripped out the paisley red rug out from underneath the fans, making an announcement on December the 4th, only 5 days before that intended Carter 5 release date. And he shocked everyone when he came out on Twitter saying that Birdman was blocking the album's release and that Wayne felt like a prisoner. And around a month and a half later, Wayne filed a whopping $51 million lawsuit against Cash Money Records. And this lawsuit right here is really the meat of the story. And like quite a lot of the things I've been covering lately, it tends to get a little bit complicated. So let me break it down for you. Over the course of his career with Cash Money, a number of agreements were entered between Lil Wayne and his record label. The first being the OG 1998 recording contract. This signed Wayne to the label and obliged him to make a certain number of albums for Cash Money Records. Now, we can't get too into the specifics of this agreement, but this is essentially ground zero for Lil Wayne's relationship with Cash Money Records and Birdman on paper. And let's also assume that signing with Cash Money Records in 1998 is probably going to be a bit of a shitty deal. However, Lil Wayne's career progressed, and of course, as he was continuing to make hit after hit, he proved himself to be a top money earner for the Cash Money crew. So when you've got that many W's to your name and you're bringing in that much money, you can basically call the shots. And so as time went on, Wayne and Birdman renegotiated and edited, adding amendments to that initial agreement. The first of which was a 2003 agreement establishing Young Money Records with Lil Wayne as the head. And Wayne's 49% of the profits would be paid after a deduction of distribution costs and fees. And I know alarm bells are ringing right now. And so to prevent fuckery with those costs, it was in the contract that Young Money was only to pay the same distribution fee to Universal which Cash Money pays themselves. Essentially meaning that Cash Money shouldn't be able to mark up their services to Young Money in order to stiff them for production fees. Which essentially means that Cash Money can't mark up distribution fees in order to stiff Young Money out of their profits. Sounds good. Then 2 years after that comes a 2005 agreement. This was a settlement agreement that was supposed to resolve some disputes that Wayne and Birdman were having with the 98 and the 2003 agreements. So the 05 agreement provided several amendments. This extended the number of option periods in the 98 agreement where Wayne was obliged to turn in albums, and it amended the 2003 Young Money agreement to give Wayne a cash advance against Young Money's profits. This is then followed by another agreement in 2006. This amends the 98 and the 2005 agreements, giving Wayne more cash advances as well as obliging him to perform on 2 duet albums for Cash Money. One of which was that Like Father, Like Son duet album with Birdman, and the other of which never actually surfaced. And then, following the humongous success of the Carter 3, as I mentioned before, Lil Wayne renegotiated his deal in a 2008 agreement. This established the following: that the Carter 3 fulfilled Lil Wayne's obligations to turn in albums in the first option period of the 98 agreement. This meant that Lil Wayne's obligations to Cash Money would now be 4 more solo albums as well as 1 duet album. And as we now know, those 4 albums ended up being Rebirth, I'm Not a Human Being, the Carter 4, and I'm Not a Human Being 2. Additionally, at this point, Wayne should be getting a shared ownership of the albums that he turns in, delivering in the 4th and 5th 5th option periods. And they also extended the period of the Young Money agreement by 6 years. They provided Wayne additional cash advances. Cash Money agreed to provide a $1 million escrow account for Young Money to use to cover their expenses, and it also stated that profits earned by Wayne in the 2003 Young Money agreement couldn't be used to recoup costs that he owed to Cash Money based on his 98 agreement. But most importantly of all, it stated that Cash Money would give Wayne and Young Money monthly accounting updates on the costings and income of all of the Young Money operation. But hey, wait a minute, what if Lil Wayne and Young Money end up signing the biggest musical artist the world has ever seen? Well, at this point, the 2009 agreement is introduced, aka the Drake Letter Agreement. This ties several conditions to the signing of your boy Drizzy Drake. Specifically, the profits and earnings out of Drake's solo career could not be used to pay back the debts of money advanced to Young Money, essentially meaning that the profits earned from Wayne's career, Young Money projects, and Drake's career should all be completely separate. And this agreement entitled the Young Money LLC to a third of net profits from Drake's recordings. And well, that's all lovely stuff, isn't it? So following the turning in of the 4th album that Wayne is obliged to give Cash Money, I'm Not a Human Being 2, the 2012 agreement is introduced. And it's this agreement that is truly the victory lap for Lil Wayne at Cash Money. This sees him amending his original 98 agreement with the promise of a massive payday. This essentially renews the original agreement with 2 additional option periods obliging him to turn in 4 albums, as well as the outstanding obligation of that second duet album which keeps on evading us. Don't know about you, but I could definitely do without another fucking Birdman and Lil Wayne duet album. But here's the major finesse. This updated deal was worth around $40 million to Wayne because it promised Wayne $10 million per solo album that he turned in. That's $8 million up front from the moment that he steps in that booth, lights his blunt, and starts recording. Okay, the blunt bit's not in the contract, but you get the gist. And he'd then earn the remaining $2 million upon handing in that finished album. That's one big, tasty deal. In addition, this also amended the Young Money agreement, making it 3 years, due to end on June the 4th, 2015, offering Wayne yet another cash advance on Young Money sales, and this time with Cash Money promising to hand over $200,000 upfront per quarter to cover Young Money overheads. But most importantly, establishing that all master recordings made by Young Money artists since 2003 are to be jointly owned and registered by both Cash Money and Lil Wayne's Young Money. Now, I know it's very easy to pick out details of these contracts and call out Birdman for sneaky corporate finessing, but ultimately, not knowing too much about Lil Wayne's initial 1998 deal, everything that we're actually seeing here that's being promised to Lil Wayne sounds pretty damn good. The problem was never necessarily Lil Wayne signing a shitty deal. The real problem was just Cash Money and Birdman bald-headedly not doing any of the shit that they said they were going to do. And apparently between 2011 and 2015, a number of problems arose that caused Lil Wayne to lawyer up and file that lawsuit against Cash Money. Apparently Cash Money failed to provide any of those monthly accounting reports that they'd promised in the contract. They didn't pay the $200,000 a quarter or provide the $1 million escrow account to cover Young Money's costs. They apparently failed to provide any accounting on the money made from Drake's career since the day he signed. Though then again, I'm kind of inclined to give the benefit of the doubt and say those just weren't handed over because Birdman's baldy little head couldn't process numbers that big. But the result of this was that Lil Wayne was basically never paid any money that he was owed from Drake's massive career. Also, it was in the original contract that Cash Money were obliged to get approval from Lil Wayne or Young Money Records anytime they spent over $300,000 on marketing. Well, apparently Cash Money didn't do this, and they claimed that they had spent millions of dollars marketing Young Money, which would need to be paid back. And hell, you think that's bad? Apparently Cash Money failed to even register Young Money as jointly owned by Lil Wayne anyway. And that 4th and final album in this deal, I'm Not a Human Being 2, was supposed to be registered as jointly owned by Wayne too, which they didn't do. Apparently Cash Money turned down artists that Wayne had submitted to be signed to Young Money, as well as failing to pay Young Money artists the royalties that they were actually owed, as we saw by Tyga also filing a suit against Birdman, but we won't get into that, and that's a story for another day. But when you pull in big successful artists, they pop off and they don't end up getting the money they're owed, it's not a good look on you. And apparently, according to Wayne, this attracted lawsuits towards him, damaging the reputation of Young Money and jeopardizing their ability to conduct business going forward. Wayne also called foul on his original 98 contract, saying Cash Money hadn't properly accounted for Wayne's royalties throughout his entire solo career. Wayne requested to audit the books of Cash Money and Young Money, and Baby refused all requests to turn over the books. And most importantly of all, in December 2014, Wayne delivered the Carter 5 as promised in the 2012 amendment, and Wayne was owed $8 million up front and $2 million upon turning in the album, both of which were not paid. Wayne says there's been absolutely no explanation as to why this wasn't paid, and since at that point he still owed Cash Money more albums, he wasn't convinced that any of those would get him paid either. That's some messed up business right there, fam. And I know that many people saw at a glance that when Lil Wayne was suing Cash Money for that figure of $51 million, it was automatically assumed that this had something to do with the 49-51% split split of Young Money, or that it was some specific figure tied to a $100 million advance that was given to Cash Money by Universal. However, that advance doesn't actually influence the $51 million figure. The damages were actually made up of $8 million that Wayne was supposedly owed for recording the Carter 5, $5 million for failing to register Wayne's 49% stake in Young Money, $13 million for shares in Wayne and Young Money's music catalog, album sales not being properly accounted for, and apparently $25 million for Wayne's future loss due to Cash Money allowing these initial agreements to fall apart. Grand total of $51 million. And that doesn't even account for the amount that Wayne was supposedly stiffed for after not being given the income from his Young Money artist solo careers, the likes of Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Tiger. A potentially enormous figure that a dollar value wasn't put on and was supposedly going to be determined in court. Considering the fact that Drake had #1 album after #1 album and Nicki Minaj had #2 album after #2 album, it's most likely that the money that was owed to Wayne was a whole 21 Savage out here, by which I mean a lot. A couple of days after Wayne announced the dispute on Twitter, he was on stage spilling the tea and saying that he was in a fucked up situation, but he hopes that he was out of it soon. And just over a month later, to apologise for all of the delays in dropping the Carter 5, Wayne drops his Sorry for the Wait 2 mixtape. And on that project, he dissed Birdman and Cash Money numerous times. Birdman was reportedly upset by this, but it took a couple of months for anything major to pop off between these two. Wayne was interviewed by Rolling Stone saying that him and Birdman were no longer on speaking terms in February. Must have been a disappointing Valentine's that year. And then on the 2nd of April, Lil Wayne hit the stage saying, "Fuck Cash Money, Carter 5 coming soon."
Carter 5 coming soon. Fuck Cash Money.
And apparently this truly enraged Baby. Because on April 24th, 2015, Lil Wayne's tour bus was shot up by an affiliate of Birdman and Young Thug, Pee Wee Roscoe. And though the connection between this shooting and the label dispute has never been definitively proven and at this stage is still just speculation, if you want to hear 10 whole minutes of said speculation, just go and watch my video on the topic. But even if you believe that Birdman was truly trying to assassinate his surrogate son, it is clear that Wayne probably wasn't scared. Because in May, Wayne dissed Cash Money once again, appearing on the song M's with A$AP Rocky and saying there ain't no cash money. However, Wayne's strategy to actually secure that bag begun to take shape around June, when he announced that he'd signed with music collection agency Cobalt. But things wouldn't start truly progressing until we saw the involvement of my favourite elevator punching bag, record label head's worst enemy, and frequent ignorer of Colin Kaepernick's phone calls, Jay-Z. Do you remember when Jay-Z trotted out a bunch of millionaires on stage and said that they deserved more of your money? Yeah, well in June 2015, Lil Wayne also joined Tone Deaf Team Tidal as an artist owner, releasing his new single Glory on Tidal. In addition to this, announcing on stage that he had just signed to his idol Jay-Z.
I just signed a deal with my mother, idol Jay-Z.
And according to DMZ, around this time, apparently Lil Wayne was getting very anxious that Birdman's incompetence would lead to Nicki Minaj and Drake both leaving his label. So Lil Wayne and Jay-Z performed a very dramatic move indeed. On July 4th, dropping the deliciously average Free Weezy album as a Tidal exclusive under Young Money and Republic Records. And this album came noticeably with absolutely no mention of Cash Money on any of the artwork, but with the publishing registered to Young Money. And in some ways this was a really poor move, but in other ways it was completely brilliant, forcing Birdman's hand and leaving him certifiably pissed. And not long after this, Birdman retaliated, showing everybody just who the real #1 tosser is by pelting Lil Wayne with drinks while he was performing on stage for Jim Jones's birthday. Hey, it's never good news when your dad turns up to your work unannounced, is it? And around a week later, Birdman shined his head up ready for war, filing a $50 million lawsuit against Tidal for the Free Weezy album, saying Cash Money owned the exclusive rights to Lil Wayne's music, and hey, he was not wrong. At this point, he tried to clear the air between him and Wayne publicly, appearing in an illuminating interview with Angie Martinez, where he essentially completely avoids answering the question of whether or not he pays people the money that they're owed, and basically just saying if you put someone on the Forbes list, they should be happy with whatever they get. Good contract.
Do you pay people what they're supposed to get?
I'm gonna answer you with this.
Okay.
You got the top 10 Forbes, right? Mm-hmm. 4 of them is us. Wayne, Drake, Nicki, and me. That speaks in volume, right? Mm-hmm. Every year for the last few years.
Yes, okay. I get that.
That speaks in volumes. So it ain't that bad, huh?
No.
To be on Forbes, right?
As well as going on to disparage Lil Wayne for his lawsuit, saying that he's put far too much money in his pocket to owe him $51 million, and suggesting that it's really just a lawyer getting in his ear.
I don't feel like I owe him $50 million. I just gave him $100+ million contract with $60 to $70 million up front. I don't feel the same way his attorney's saying he feels. I don't feel that way. I get a man $70 million up front.
It was was also in this interview that he started his ominous habit of claiming that Drake and Nicki Minaj are with him for life.
And so Drake ain't going nowhere, regardless.
Right. Are they happy?
Both of them, very.
Okay.
Sound familiar?
We forever in business with Drake.
Because of the masters.
We forever in business with Drake.
What's the next deal look like?
We forever in business with.
Now, for a moment, it looked like Birdman and Lil Wayne were publicly reconciling after being seen at Drake's 2016 New Year's Eve party at Club Live, and again later in the studio, with reports saying that actually Mac Main, the president of Young Money, had set the two up together on a 2-hour phone call prior to this event, and that he was still working on trying to reconcile the relationship between the two. And 3 weeks after that, Wayne and Birdman were back on stage at Club Live once again, with what looked like a drunken Birdman seemingly declaring his love for Lil Wayne. Meanwhile, Wayne seemed to be searching at the bottom of his blunt for any way out of this desperate and embarrassing situation.
I know in the last year y'all might have heard shit say, family never die. This is my son and I'm gonna die for him, I'm gonna live for him, and I'll mother kill for him, you heard me? That ain't gonna never change, nigga. It's YMCMB for life and we're gonna live this we motherfucker die, and I'm telling you what it is.
A day after that, they were in the studio with Yo Gotti, but even though the contract dispute was still going on, according to TMZ, Wayne had no plans to drop the lawsuit. And before long, Wayne would come up with an ingenious sideways chess move that would ultimately end up getting him everything he wanted. Because on March 28, 2016, Wayne decided to take things all the way to the principal, suing Cash Money's parent company, Universal, directly for $40 million. Pointing the blunt directly at Universal, saying that they confiscated Wayne's profits to repay Cash Money's debt, something they were not authorized to do. And despite a few more public jabs where Wayne was caught saying "fuck Cash Money," like he did at this 420 rally in Denver, yeah, those are not really the vibes that I'm looking for at my 420 rally, man. Now at this point, it didn't seem like much progress was being made, and rumors began to circulate that Wayne was going to retire, saying that he felt mentally defeated by this entire process, in a series of tweets which Wayne later clarified was sent after having an argument with Birdman. Then in September, TMZ reported that a judge had ordered Birdman to hand over financial documents to prove where $70 million of that UMG $100 million advance had gone within 30 days. But apparently during this period, Birdman and Lil Wayne were in negotiations close to reaching a settlement, but 25 days later, this would completely fall apart and Birdman would halt negotiations out of pure pettiness because apparently Birdman was feeling some type of way that Wayne had replaced a Cash Money lyric with Rockefeller whilst performing on stage at Camp Flog Gnaw.
Rockefeller millionaire.
And from there, things stalled out hard until July the 5th, when Wayne upped the ante, filing court papers adding Birdman and Slim to the UMG lawsuit, and importantly, moving it from New York to New Orleans, saying specifically that both Slim, Birdman, and Universal are blocking him from accessing his profits from Drake's career. And apparently, as the online trend of people saying "Free Weezy" and people telling Birdman to pay Lil Wayne picked up steam, Birdman was steaming and he ended up making a bizarre Instagram video where he once again claimed ownership for Lil Wayne's success. I'll tell you what, he certainly didn't spend that $70 million on a phone with a decent front-facing camera. A few months later, Baby must have got himself a head massage and calmed down, because in February he promised that the Carter 5 would be dropping by the end of 2018. And then in March, Wayne and Birdman were back in Club Live having more PDAs and sharing Instagram pics of them two together mean mugging. Though at the same time, the blast reported that negotiations between the two were still extremely hostile. And Birdman seemed to confirm this, suggesting that the lawsuit was affecting their kids, their actual kids, who were apparently gossiping amongst themselves about the situation.
We gotta get this together because it's affecting our kids. But guess what? They all talk.
Yeah, of course.
Talk to my kids.
They relatives. Why wouldn't they? Yeah, why wouldn't they?
He talked to my children all the man up and deal with it, G up and just call it a day and fix it.
And in a shock twist that caught everyone by surprise, Birdman stuck to his word and fixed it. Because on June the 7th, 2018, Birdman and Wayne finally reached a mutual settlement, which unfortunately was covered by an NDA, so we'll never know the full details. And while the $10 million figure seems to have been thrown around here and there, this has been unconfirmed and several people close to Lil Wayne have suggested that it's false. My best guess is people probably plucked that $10 million figure based on what he was owed for the Carter 5, but the reality is whatever he was paid, it was definitely an 8-figure settlement, most likely comprised of back pay of what he was owed on his solo career as well as the Young Money catalog, most likely paid to him by Universal directly. But clearly whatever was agreed was okay by both parties, because in August we finally saw the true public squashing of the beef as Birdman apologized to Lil Wayne on stage.
To be home, bro. Fuck my son. I love that nigga to death. I don't know what y'all know, but I know what the f I know, and I know how I feel about what I know. And I wanted to apologize to my nigga worldwide to let him know that you're. That nigga put his life in my hands, and I'm gonna keep it real with that nigga. We gonna do this shit till the day we die. It's why I'm seeing beef for death, nigga. Fuck.
And I know that's beautiful and romantic and all that good stuff, but one final public L would soon be delivered to Birdman, as it would soon turn out that it wasn't YMCMB forever after all. On September the 13th, 2018, it came out that Young Money was no longer a joint venture with Cash Money Records and that Lil Wayne was the sole owner of the label, with full ownership granted to Lil Wayne as a result of that settlement. And so, 2 weeks after this, after years of delay, gallons of blood, sweat and lean, and thousands of fans with broken hearts all over the world, Wayne finally dropped the long-awaited Carter 5 album through Young Money and Republic Records with no Cash Money Records label in sight. Yeah, it was aight. You know, no Carter 3 or Carter 4. And, you know, come to think of it, I'm Not Human Being 1 was also pretty fire. You know, I used to be ballin', but now I'm Bill Gaten. You remember that one? Alright, peace out.
What's good, gang? It's your boy Trap Lord Ross coming at you live from the toilet for reasons that are not important. I just want to drop a quick message to everybody saying I hope everybody is safe out there. It's scary times at the moment, and I just hope that you all look after yourselves. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and take it easy. I'm wishing everybody the best. I appreciate you. I just want to give a little extra announcement. I'm going to close my merch store at the end of the month. It's probably the least important thing that's going on right now, but you got to keep it going, man. Life goes on, the world's still moving. You've got to do your thing. So I'm going to switch up the merch store at the end of the month. If anybody out there still wants to cop something, get your orders in at traplord.com before the end of the month. I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of new designs after that. I'm going to be super excited for it. And of course, as always, I want to give a humongous shout out to my Patreon gang. That's Inuk, Claire Audien, Otaku VS, Noah Carter, Jaden Cho, Candy Cantrell, Jason Thor, Pyromancer, Griffin Fuller, Sean Anderson, Antonio Groza, Javier Gonzalez, James C, Vivi, DJ Fred 100, Bash the Prince, Fabian Cruz, Johannes Zimmerman, Henry Bryan, Josh Nappin, Niraj Shukla, Galib, Jessica Simmons, Chris J, Dylan Stuber, Tony Doe, Penis Bag McPenis Face, Wilson Psychedelic, and Asaya. Thank you so much for your support, as well as everybody else whose names you can see on the screen now. It means the world to me. Hope everybody is good. Hope everybody is looking after themselves. And until next time, peace out.